Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CAPM preparation course. Today is our first session, and we are going to start with the project management fundamentals. But before that, a quick ground rule. Uh, First of all, please be on mute throughout the session unless you want to speak or you want to ask questions so that the class does not get disturbed because of the background noises coming from your end. Secondly, if there is any disconnection, please do not panic. Might be a power cut or a network fluctuation. I will rejoin within 5 minutes. If not, I will send out a quick message on the WhatsApp group that we have. Coming to Techcanvass. Techcanvass is an IT certifications training organization since 2011. We are a PMI authorized training provider and an IIBA endorsed education provider as well. Techcanvass was founded in 2011. We enable professionals to get into project management domain as well as get certified as CAPM and PMP certified professionals. Our first topic today is project management fundamentals and methodologies. We are also going to cover our environments and roles. If time permits, we will take a deep dive into CAPM, introduction to CAPM. If not, we will cover it tomorrow. The thing is that I prefer covering it on the very first day because I believe that is something which helps as well as sets the tone for the rest of the sessions. So that would be our next topic. Then we will get into the project management, processes and knowledge areas, starting with integration management. Then we will move on to scope, schedule, and cost, quality resource communication, risk procurement stakeholder. We'll take a quick look at, when we are covering our schedule management at that point in time itself, we will take a look at how MS project looks and, what we can do with that. And finally, we will wrap up the session on the last day with the preparation examination tips and tricks. All right. Now, again, one more disclaimer. The thing is that CAPM, the idea behind CAPM is that it is an entry-level certification into project management. Okay. So PMI, the body which conducts this particular certification examination, they already take that into consideration. That you do not have as a candidate, as an applicant, you do not have any experience or knowledge about project management. Okay. So the whole of the certification is heavily based on the theory part of it, not the practicality part of it. Practical or rather situation-based questions are there in PMP certification examination, but not in CAPM. So this course is majorly aligned to that concept or to that idea. So as soon as we get into the project management knowledge areas, starting integration management till our stakeholder or procurement management, it is going to be very, very theory heavy. Okay. Wherever possible, as I mentioned, I'll keep on giving you examples to help you understand what we are doing or why we are doing it. But there are ITTOs. ITTOs are nothing but inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs for each process under every knowledge area. All these ITTOs are supposed to be understood by you. These are not supposed to be mugged up. Okay. And it is not going to happen on the very first day. Let me be honest with you. Your ITTOs, you will take time to understand and memorize and, realize what is the logic behind that. For that, you have to do your own study. All right. So be mentally prepared for that. That you have to invest some time into your preparation, somewhere around ideally 2 months after the course ends, before you take up your CAPM certification examination. Okay, you have to do your study at least 2 to 3 hours a day on weekdays, 5 to 6 hours on weekends. Do it regularly. keep on doing it on a regular basis without any breaks. And this thing I mentioned in my last webinar, which I realized, I was reading this book, Atomic Habits. Have you heard of this? I'm sure you have, but still. Have you heard of this book? The name of this book, Atomic Habits?
I have heard of it, but I haven't got a time to read it yet.
Okay. It's a very nice book. I mean, if you get a chance, please do read it. You know, the holidays are coming up all across the globe. I'm sure everybody will get some free time. If not CAPM, at least try to read that book during that particular time. The thing is, in Atomic Habits, it says one of the points that I realized that if you do not get time to read, if you do not get time to study, just come, open your book, sit down for 2 minutes, read 2, 3 lines, one paragraph, whatever you can cover within those 2 minutes, close the book, get up and leave. Okay. Initially, you will think, what is the logic behind reading just for 2 minutes? What difference would it make? But if you keep on doing it, you will not realize when gradually that 2 minutes has increased to 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. It is not the amount of reading that you are doing. It is the habit that you are forming. That is important. Because at this point in time, I mean, I understand that all of us have completed our university education already at least couple of years back minimum, right? We are not in that mode anymore wherein we can sit for hours and study, and it is going to be problematic. So to overcome that habit, or that lifestyle change that we have already adapted to, first of all, you need to get into the habit of studying and reading on a daily basis, not just for this particular certification examination, but for any other certification examination which is like at a decent difficulty level. So try and use that whenever you can, whenever you start studying, so that it is easier for you to cope up with this change. All right. Having said that, let us first take a look and understand what is project management, starting with understanding what is a project. So a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. This is the definition of PMI, which is there in the PMBOK guide. Do you know what is the full form of PMBOK? Okay. PMBOK stands for Project Management Book of Knowledge. This is one book that you have to study. It is around a 600-page book. And let me break the news to you at a later point in time about this book and about the other material that you have to use. But we'll cross that bridge when we reach there. For now, this is the definition which is there as in the book for the project, for a project rather. Now, we can say that we are constructing multiple houses in a housing complex. And that housing complex is a project, or every individual house is a project. But then every time we are creating the same house, we are building the same house, the blueprint is same. How is it different? Because technically every project should create a unique product, but we are building the same house every time as per the architecture, as per the blueprint. The difference will come in terms of the placement of the electricity boards, or the tiles, or the window location, or after the construction has been completed, the interiors that will be done. The plumbing might be a little bit different. The kind of bathroom ware that has been used might be a bit different, right? These small, finer details, finer changes that we make in a end product is what makes that particular project unique. For that matter, like Vidya said, that she is working in IT software project management. One particular organization, she mentioned Zoom. So let us take that example. Zoom has only one product, let's assume. All right. Now that particular product is same at the end of the day. It is a communication technology tool which can be used to make calls, audio and video calls, or for chatting also. So that piece of software is not changing. But every time you are delivering that software to a new customer through a project, there will be different functionalities. There can be different features which might be added or removed for that matter. That is what each individual project will become unique. All right. Now, the characteristics of a project is that it is always temporary. That is, it will always have a start and end date. If something does not have a start and end date, in that case, it is not project, but it is what? What is the opposite of project? It is operations, right? Operations is something which is ongoing, which never ends. So if it is temporary with a definite start and end date, in that case, it is a project. If it is not temporary, which means it does not have a start and end date, in that case, it is operations. There is something called a project operations, that is a different thing. But in generic corporate language, in generic domain language, this is what the difference is between a project and operations. Now, apart from being temporary, a project is always unique. It has a definite goal or objective, because if it does not have a goal or objective, in that case, what are you creating? Why did you start working on that? Right? And lastly, it should be aligned with the organizational strategy. Why? Because if it is not aligned with this organizational strategy, you may not get the support from the leadership. And if you do not get the support from the leadership, it is very, very difficult for you to execute a project unless you are in a very authoritative and controlling position in the organization yourself. Right? So that should be the idea behind getting the leadership on board. And that is why we generally have the project sponsors, apart from the customer, who can support us. All right. Few examples of project: construction of a house, launching of a satellite, launching of a mobile application, construction of a dam. These are just few examples. Sorry. These are just few examples. There can be hundreds and hundreds of examples about a project, what a project can be. Anything that you're doing around your house, it is a project. You're cooking your meal, it is a project. You're washing dishes, it is a project. You're cleaning your house, it is a project. You're making your bed, that is a project. You're eating your food, that is a project. If you put on that project management thinking cap, you will see everything around you as a project. Right? So there can be multiple examples.
Hi, sir. One doubt.
Sure.
In a project, you said construction of house is a project. There could be multiple projects in the construction of house, if I'm not wrong, is it? Or
Can
it
be.
should can be, cannot
See,
be.
yeah,
Okay.
it depends on what is the definition of that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take up construction of a house as a project? Yes, that is possible. You want to take the construction of the whole housing society as a single project? Possible. But generally, what we do is we create a program when we are doing that, because there are multiple undertakings, and we'll touch base on that, because just now we are seeing on the screen, we are going to talk about programs. Within a house, if you're doing the interiors, that can be a separate project.
Yeah.
If you are doing, some decoration or renovation, that can be a separate project.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Right?
Yep.
Now, coming back to programs. So program is the logical next level of project management, which is program management. What is a program? Program are when we put related projects, subsidiary programs, and program activities under the same umbrella so that we can coordinate them together and we can extract benefit from them, which will not be available from managing them individually. So if we are constructing a housing society, right, a community or gated community for that matter, why we will bring all the individual houses which are being executed as an individual project under the same umbrella of a program? Because we have to perform certain similar or identical activities among all of these projects. So if I'm let's say if I'm constructing a single house and I have to get the plumbing done of that particular house, and I hire a contractor, hire a plumber, the costing that the plumber will give me for a single house will be much more higher if much more higher compared to if I try to get it done as a bulk order for all the houses at once. So that benefit of cost reduction, that benefit of discount will not be available to me individually. That is why I will club all the projects together and then try to manage it as a program. Right? There can be activities such as bringing in the raw material, transporting the raw material from the supplier. Those activities will be common among all of these houses. So if I try to again order it in bulk and transport it in bulk, I will be able to save some cost. Plus, it will reduce the total amount of time that the material will take to reach the site, which will be required for each individual project. Let's say every house is going to require 10,000 bricks. If you keep on transporting 10,000 bricks, every time the amount of travel is going to be the same, which is going to delay the deliverables or the timelines of the project, individual house construction project. So these kind of benefits can be extracted if we manage multiple projects and their related activities together. And that is how a program comes into it. Right? Is this concept clear about project and program? I need a yes or no from all of you, because this is the base. This is the basics. If you are not clear, I would like to get it clear.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, programs characteristics that the projects should be related. First of all, you're constructing a gated community, and then you are constructing a multiplex next to it. It may or may not be related. So if it is not related, in that case, you cannot club them together. Or laying of a gas pipeline next to the gated community, and then construction of houses happening inside the gated community. These two items are not related. So just because it is happening in the same geographical location does not mean you club it together. So under a program, the projects should be related. All right. And they should share a mutual goal. These individual projects cannot be like headless chickens and they are running around on their own at their own discretion. They should try to achieve the same objective, same business strategy. Right? That is the main idea behind creating a program. All right. Now, program examples. If we are creating a multiplex, in that case, we can take up the building or the construction of a cinema hall as an individual project. Within the same property, we are also constructing a restaurant. We can take it as an individual project. And then we are constructing a shopping mall. we can take that as an individual project and then club together and put them under the same multiplex program. Now, in this particular case, because they are all interrelated, they can be clubbed together and can be put under the same umbrella of a program, right? Because just like how I was giving you the example of getting the raw material or giving out the contracts in bulk and things like that, these benefits can be extracted if we club them together. And that is why we will club them together. When we sign a contract, generally we sign a contract for a project, but it is not unseen or it is not impossible that we sign a contract with the customer for a program. But when we are creating a program, the logic is always the same, that it should be unrelated to each other. All right. Now, our next, our next step in project management is the portfolio management. Now, in this particular case, we are not just clubbing together the projects and the programs, we are also clubbing the related operations activities under the same umbrella. So, till programs, we are not talking about operations. As soon as portfolio comes into picture, we take operations also in consideration. And then we create the portfolio. So, it is a program manager, portfolio, project manager, program manager, then a portfolio manager. All right. Now, in portfolio management, why operations is coming into picture is because for managing a portfolio, you need to take stock. You need to get the updates. You need to do certain activities on a regular basis, maybe on a daily or on a weekly basis, that will keep the portfolio intact and that will keep the portfolio healthy. Those kind of activities are the operational activities. So, for example, my current reporting manager is a portfolio manager. All right. She has to, manage the various customer portfolios or various customer projects that falls under each one of us program managers bucket on a weekly basis. So she performs certain operations in terms of how is the forecast looking, what kind of escalations are going on, what kind of surveys are out there on which we need customer response and feedback. All these activities will be or are essentially operations. So because she is managing the portfolio, that is why she is also managing the operations part. If that operations is taken out from the whole equation, in that case, it can very well be called as a program itself. Okay. Now, portfolio.
Sir, one question. Sir, the group of project is called a program, and group of program is called the portfolio. Is it?
It is not just a group. There are other aspects to it. You cannot put 5 different projects together and you can call it a program. They should be firstly relevant and interrelated to each other. And they should have a same goal. Same thing with program. They should have a same goal. It should be aligned to the same objective. Okay. And under a program, then there can also be another program or sub program, which lies somewhere between a project and a program. Those kind of undertakings can also be there. So it is not just that you group together only specifically projects and then you create a program, or you group together only programs and then you can create a portfolio. Under a portfolio, there can be projects and programs.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Now, coming back to portfolios, the portfolio's characteristics are that the projects and programs need not be related. Okay. So, for example, if a person is managing a portfolio, they would be managing multiple customers, and those customers will have multiple projects and programs running for them, and essentially those will not be related, but still it is called a portfolio, because again we will be able to extract certain benefits. We will be able to extract certain benefits if we can manage them together. Okay, the same strategic objective or the same business objective. Now, a portfolio is generally under the same business domain. Okay, so if let me give you an example of Dell. So Dell has, because I'm looking at my Dell laptop right now, so I just thought of taking that example. Dell has laptops, Dell has printers, Dell has servers, Dell has network switches, right? Now, each individual product line is one individual or may be managed by one individual business unit. So for laptop business, there can be a separate business unit. For printer business unit, printer product, there can be a single business unit. So all the portfolio, the whole portfolio should be aligned to one business unit. In reality, in practicality, what happens is when you are selling a service, selling a server or selling a laptop or selling a printer to the customer, it also gets sold along with a service of installing that hardware. And that offering, that service is a separate business unit. So that is how all these services, which essentially get converted as a project, gets managed by the same business unit, which is the services business unit. So if you think that a portfolio manager in an organization such as Dell is managing, let's say, Visa or Citibank or Wells Fargo or Boeing. These are different organizations, different industries. They are, buying different products. How can they be clubbed together under the same portfolio? They are being clubbed together under the same portfolio because the services are same, the offerings are same. Whether you are installing a whole data center servers in a single data center, or whether you are installing a single standalone server, your services are going to be same. It is just the cycles will increase. It will be delivered in multiples in terms of counts. So that is how a portfolio is created. All right. Now, portfolio example, we have seen that example of multiplex, which we have taken up as a program, under which there was a restaurant, there was a cinema hall, right? Now, there can be another program in which we are constructing a luxury villa, or not but multiple luxury villas. Then there can be a project of constructing a farmhouse. Now, farmhouse may not be taken up as a program because it is a single entity, just like an individual house, right? So just like an individual house construction cannot be taken up as a program because there are no multiple projects that can be created of it. Similarly, construction of a farmhouse should be taken up ideally as a project and not as a program. But all of these can be put under the same portfolio of the prime real estate. Okay, that is how we generally create portfolios, or that is what the logic is behind creating portfolios. Apart from that, there is a value delivery system between the executive leadership of an organization the portfolios that are there, that exist within the organization, under which the programs and projects are there, and the operations related activities are also there. So from senior leadership, the strategy goes to the portfolio. From the portfolio, the required outcomes or benefits or values is passed down to the programs and projects in terms of what they need to deliver. And from programs and projects, the deliverables which have been completed, they are moved to the operations for support and maintenance. Right? Similarly, when we are moving upwards from operations to the senior leadership, the operations is sharing the programs, sharing the updates, fixes, and adjustments to the programs and projects. The programs and projects are sharing the performance information and progress related information to the portfolios. And the portfolios are sharing their own performance information with the senior leadership. And overall, the outcomes, benefits, and the value performance analysis is being shared across the board to the senior leadership. This is how the value delivery system works within an organization, which is primarily working on the project management domain. All right. Now, any questions here?
All good, sir.
Okay. All right. So if we try to look at the value delivery system from a graphical point of view, this is how a value delivery system might look for a project, and then multiple projects under a program, and then multiple projects and programs under a portfolio. So let us take, for example, that we are launching a new product in the market. So when we are, and a product launch is essentially a time-bound activity. Not just the launch, but the whole product's life cycle. That is a time-bound activity. Every product which is launched in the market is going to die down eventually at one point or the other. Correct? We all understand this. So when we are launching the product, the introduction into the market of that product will be taken up as a project. Then to support the growth of the product in the market, we can have multiple projects. Now, these two phases of the product might be clubbed together under the same program, because at that point in time, maybe the aggressiveness of introducing and making the product grow, making the product a household name, being aggressive with the advertising, with the promotions, those common business objectives might be achieved better if we execute it as a program. So we might club them together, and every time I see, we say we might, because it is not a hard and fast rule. If you are seeing that there is a benefit, you can club together. If you are not seeing that there is a benefit, or that they are not aligned to the same business goal, you need not club them together as a program. It is absolutely at your discretion. Right? Then the next two phases of maturity and retirement of the product might be supported by, again, individual and multiple projects, so that the product is, can be graciously taken away from the market. So those kind of projects can again then be executed together as a program, wherein you are not trying to be aggressive with the product, but you are trying to make the product more stable and you're trying to make the product more stable, and you're trying to support the product when it has already captured a certain market share. Okay, this is what we generally do when we are executing, or we are introducing rather, a new project, a new product in the market, from a value delivery system point of view. Now, I'm sure you would have, if you have some exposure to project management, you would have seen this at one point or the other. This is the classic project life cycle, or what we call as the predictive model or predictive approach. Okay. Have you heard of these terms? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. See, the thing is that I'm trying to go really, really slow with the first session because I want to make sure that these basics are clear to you. Okay. So if you have any question or if you are seeing something which is not clear to you, please feel free to ask. All right, because this is your foundation of project management. It is important that you understand the concepts and understand the logics behind this. Okay. Now, coming to our predictive approach, we initiate a project first under a predictive approach. Once we have initiated it, we move to the planning phase. From planning phase, we go to the execution phase. From execution phase, we move on to the monitoring and controlling phase. But sometimes it happens that we realize that we are not able to monitor or control it the way we wanted or we intended to. So we go back to the drawing board. And in most of the cases, we go back and forth between monitoring and controlling and execution. But in certain cases, we might also go back to the planning phase and replan things and then again execute it and try to monitor and control it. And in certain rare cases, we might even go back to the initiation phase and then start the cycle again. Why this happens is because we have not set our baselines correctly. What are baselines? How do we use them? We are going to take a look at them when we cover the scope, cost, and schedule management modules. All right. But it happens and it is absolutely just because you are a project manager does not mean that every single estimate, every single assumption, every single dependency, every single constraint is going to act up as per your requirements or as per your expectations. It is absolutely fine if you have to go back to the drawing board multiple times also within a project's life cycle. Okay, but if you try to do it too often or too many times, in that case, there is some serious problem in the planning. You may have to take a relook, but that is a topic of discussion for a later point in time. At this point in time, let us only focus specifically on the delivery approaches. All right. Now, under project initiation, we perform various activities such as developing the project charter, engaging the stakeholders, conducting the project kickoff meeting. Most of the times, this is an internal kickoff meeting followed by an external kickoff meeting. Why internal? Because as the project team or as the project manager, you have to take the handover from the sales team. Right? In 99% of the organization, it is the sales team who generates the leads for the projects, right? They have gone ahead and sold either a service or a product to the customer based on which there is a requirement for a new project to be created. So that handover has to happen. And once that internal kickoff is completed, you as a project manager have understood what is required or what is the customer expectation. You go back to the customer and introduce yourself, introduce your team. At the same time, try and understand, try and verify rather that your understanding of the project deliverables is correct or not. Right? So these are the very basic and few steps or activities that we perform under project planning. Sorry, project initiation. Then in project planning, we create all the subsidiary management plans for a project. whether it is in, scope management, cost management, communication management, resource management, procurement management, stakeholder engagement, right? Remember this aspect that when it comes to stakeholder, it is not the stakeholder management, but it is the stakeholder engagement. That is the only one module which is a little bit different in terms of our management plans. All right. We also create our WBSs. What are WBS? These are the work breakdown structures. What are work breakdown structures? We are going to take a look at that at a later point in time. We also create our roles and responsibilities through the RACI matrix. Anybody who can give me the full form of RACI? Okay. Have you heard of this RACI? Anybody? I thought Jayant is going to say yes, and then he went on mute. No worries. I mean, if you have not heard about RACI, it is absolutely fine. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Okay. We are going to take a look at this when we do our stakeholder module. All right. There is nothing pressing at this point in time, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of this at this point in time. In quality management in Six Sigma, we also use S, RACIS. The S stands for support in that case. All right. Okay. The next phase is our project execution phase, wherein we execute all the subsidiary management plans that we have created. And we also assess and respond to the risks. But the risks have already been identified beforehand. Okay, how that works, again, we are going to take a look at that at a later point in time. Then we have our monitoring and controlling. This is the phase where most of the change management happens. Okay, and we create the project reports by comparing the progress against the baselines that we have created. And this is an ongoing process throughout the project's life cycle. So just because in the previous slide, we have seen that we move from initiating to planning and closing, from planning to executing, from executing to monitoring and controlling, does not mean that there are very specific bifurcations or boundaries to these phases. Many a times we run multiple phases at the same time when we are trying to execute a project. Right? The last phase is our project closure phase, which is called the, which carries the formal user acceptance, because if there is a project, there has to be a customer, whether internally or externally, but there will always be a customer. So the customer has to formally accept the deliverable, whether it is a product, service, or a result. Then the handover happens to the operations, if there is any maintenance or support required, because the project team cannot support the operations. Then the contracts, if any, will be closed between the performing organization and the customer, as well as the performing organization and the third-party vendors, if we have used their services. Then we archive the lessons learned. What are lessons learned? Lessons learned are basically what we have learned during the whole execution of the project. We might end up identifying some new best practices. We might have done something and it did not give us the intended result, or it took us a longer time to achieve a certain result. So that was also our lessons learned, that we could have done it better. Right? So all these information goes into the lessons learned document. Then we also have the project artifacts. Artifacts are nothing but the project documents that we create, whether it is issue log, whether it is risk register, the stakeholder register, the design documents, the knowledge transfer documents, all these documents which are created throughout the life cycle of a project are also archived, so that in the future, the same project team or the same customer or the same performing organization or a new project team or taking up a similar kind of a project in the future can refer to these documents and can get some help out of it. All right. So these are the very basic kind of activities that we perform in each of these phases. This is the classic project management constraint. We call it the triple constraint. This is a triangle, and on each side of it, each corner of it, lies scope, cost, and schedule. Okay. Why it is called the triple constraint? Because your project should be executed keeping all these three aspects in mind. It is generally considered that quality lies in between this particular triangle. But quality is not considered to be one of the constraints. These three aspects, scope, cost, and schedule, are considered to be the constraints. Why? Because if your scope is not met, your cost target is not met, or your schedule or timeline is not met, your project is essentially a failure. So if you want your project to be a success, in that case, you should be able to execute and deliver the project within the stated scope, within the approved cost, within the approved schedule. All right. So this is the triple constraint. This is the classic three constraints that a project manager should keep in mind. Now, in the classic, which is the predictive model that we have seen, right, which is also called as the waterfall. Now, for people who do not know why it is called a waterfall or what is waterfall, where that logic comes from, let me open a paint and quickly draw something. What happens is it comes like this: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and then the closure. So it looks like a waterfall, water coming down a waterfall. So what happens in waterfall or in predictive approach is we complete this particular phase and then we move on to the next one, right? We are not leaving one particular phase and then we are doing something else. We are not leaving it half cooked and moving on to something else. Like just like I use the example of cooking. You are not identifying your vegetables and then you put the utensil on the gas. You have to first chop it. You have to first prepare it. Prepare all your ingredients. You have to get them ready. And then only you can start cooking. Right? So that is why it is called as a waterfall, because it looks like water coming down from a waterfall. Only after one phase has been completed, one aspect has been completed, then only we can move to the next aspect or next phase. Okay, remember this diagram or this whatever scribbling I have done on MS Paint whenever you are talking about or referencing waterfall. It will be easier for you to correlate. All right. Now, so in classic project management, the scope is always fixed. The cost and schedule are variables. Why so? Because your scope cannot change in a project, or at least in a predictive approach, in a classic approach. Your scope cannot change. Once the project has been, once the scope has been recognized, then only we will be able to execute it, or then only we will be able to deliver the project based on that identified scope. If the scope keeps on changing, we will not be able to complete the project, because and specifically I'm talking about the predictive methodology here, the classic PM approach. If your scope keeps on changing, in that case your project will start getting extended again and again, and eventually it will become operations. Because as we have seen previously when we started with the session, a project will always have a start and end date. So there are few change requests coming in, we are accepting that, we are executing that. Based on that, we have some adjustments required to be made in the scope. That is a different thing. But your scope cannot keep on changing throughout. Your overall, the bigger picture of the scope will always be fixed. Right? Now, why cost and schedule can be variable? Because let's say you have $100,000 to execute a project. Can you ensure that every single penny is going to be used? There can be holidays, there can be absenteeism, there can be you bought a resource which you got for a lower cost, you got some discounts, so you saved some money. Nobody will come and say कि नहीं भाई पैसा दिया तुमको खर्च तो करना पड़ेगा. And by the way, are you guys fine with Hindi? I have this habit of breaking into different languages once in a while. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm okay. All good.
So no, I'm not okay.
You are not okay? Okay, sorry. I'll try not to get into that then.
Yeah, a little bit of Hindi is manageable, but
चलो कैसे
Achha, okay. I'll keep that in mind.
yeah.
So nobody is going to come and tell or come and say that I have already approved a certain budget. Go ahead and spend everything that you can, or spend the whole budget. If you can save some money, and that happens, it is not pinpoint always when it comes to cost. The same thing goes with schedule. You say that you are going to complete a certain activity or a certain deliverable within a week's time. Okay. When you say within a week, you're essentially talking about 40 hours in a week, which is 8 hours a day times 5 days, right? But what if you complete it within 39 weeks? Sorry, 39 hours. Or what if you take 41 or 42 hours to complete that? It is very much possible. It happens. Okay, nobody is going to put a gun on your head. As long as it is within a certain threshold, within a certain acceptable range. If it goes beyond that, then yes, if the customer is like that, they will put a gun on your head. That's a different thing, right? But in practicality, in real life situation, a little bit of consideration can always be given here and there when it comes to the classic predictive approach. So therefore, a cost and schedule is considered to be variable. Little bit here and there is acceptable. Within a certain range, it is acceptable. But the scope will always remain fixed. All right. Now, when we are talking, or rather, why we are talking about specifically about classic project management methodology? Can you tell me what is the other methodology that we have in project management?
Agile.
Agile. Nice. So, Vidya, you cover the agile part.
Yeah.
What is different?
Agile is like
Okay.
in waterfall, we can just flow the project as a has a waterfall model. Like we can't go back. In Agile, we can go back and we can change the goals, and then it's an iterative process in the short term.
Exactly. That is the term I was looking for. Not
Yeah,
agile, but the iterative,
yeah,
right? Now, a little bit of correction there, Vidya. It is not that we cannot go back. It is preferred not to go back in predictive. And on the contrary, in iterative approach, in agile project management, it is not that we go back, but we perform the same steps again and again for every iteration or for every sprint. Why? Because when we work in an agile environment, agile is being, you know, uh,
yeah,
easy to maneuver. That is what the dictionary definition of agile says, right? So when we are working in an agile environment, the reason behind working in an agile environment is that the scope is not fixed, or the scope is not known. The complete scope is not known, at least. What eventually you want to achieve, you know, but how you want to achieve, or how much effort is required, or how you are going to, how much cost or schedule might be required, you are not sure. That is why we execute certain projects based on that particular methodology. Vidya, can you please go on mute if you are not talking? Thank you. So the reason behind agile is that in certain situations when we are, and this is the new age problem, so to say, or new age approach, so to say, that you are, you as a customer, not as a project manager, you as a customer are not 100% sure as to how much effort or work is required for completing a certain objective. That is why it is considered to be variable. The scope is considered to be variable. Now, if we take the variability factor from the predictive approach, wherein the cost and schedule are variable, right? And as per agile, we make the scope also variable. Then everything will become fluid. Nothing is fixed in that case. So what are we chasing then? We are not chasing the scope. We are not chasing the cost. We are not chasing the skill. So what are we chasing? Again, it will not remain a project. So when agile approach was developed, considering that the scope can be variable, changes are welcomed, something has to be fixed. So what will be fixed in that case? Let us fix the other two constraints of the iron triangle. It is also called an iron triangle, the triple constraint triangle. So let us fix the other two aspects, which is cost and schedule. Now, in agile approach, like I was saying, you have a certain amount of work to be done, right? You cannot pinpoint to the exact budget or exact schedule. So how is that fixed in agile and not in predictive? Because in agile, these are short spurts, these are short runs. That is why it is easier for you as a project manager to identify and calculate the exact effort required, the exact budget required for completing that piece of work, right? And agile essentially talks about in number of weeks. So even if you're calculating it as 40 hours a week and you complete it within 39 hours or 42 hours, still it is a week for agile, which means your schedule is fixed. Your schedule is not variable anymore. And from the cost aspect also, because it is a short scope, it is a smaller scope that you're trying to achieve within a particular sprint based on the backlog. And what is a backlog? We'll take a look at that at a later point in time. But based on the backlog, what you're trying to achieve is a short deliverable, is a smaller piece of the overall deliverable. You will be able to manage your costs also better. You will have a better control on cost. That is how in agile your cost also gets fixed, right? Because when we are talking about cost and schedule, we are not talking about the whole project. We are essentially looking at each iteration or each sprint. And that is where we are able to fix it. We are able to avoid that variability. All right. Is this clear between the difference between agile and uh, predictive, or rather iterative versus predictive?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Now, moving on. What is the most important aspect that a project manager should focus on, according to you?
The end result.
The end result, okay.
Defining the right scope.
Finding the right
Scope, like for initiation.
okay. Anybody else would like to add anything? Okay. For me, I mean, again, this is my personal belief, this is my personal experience and personal learning. It need not be same, and I'm not talking on behalf of PMI here. I'm just sharing a personal observation. I believe for me, the communication is most important. If you can keep your communication proactive and tight, you will be able to avoid 99% of the problems on your project, whether it is internal communication or external communication. But that is my observation, that is my belief. You are absolutely entitled to have your own observations, and that is absolutely fine. But the reason why we are talking about aspects is because there are certain aspects, or rather principles, which project management abides by. All right. These are the various aspects based on which we have the 12 principles of project management that Project Management Institute talks about, that PMI talks about. Okay. These are the uh, aspects based on which we manage most of our projects. All right. Now, there are, as I mentioned, there are 12 principles based on these 7 aspects. Before we take a look at the principles, let us first understand what is a principle. A principle is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior, or for a chain of reasoning. This is the dictionary definition, the bookish definition that we have for a principle, right? But I believe we all understand what a principle is. Correct? Is there anybody in the class right now who does not understand what a principle essentially means? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Now, we have a couple of slides based on principle. What are the generic examples of principle? I do not believe that is required. I'm not going to go through that. It is just a very generic, very bookish information which is there. But I wanted to cover the principles from a project management standpoint in terms of the examples. So first is our principle, or um, a rule of thumb, if you may say, that do not start your work before the proposal of your project is acknowledged. Acknowledged by the sponsor, acknowledged by the customer. Many a times it happens that you're managing a customer for a long period of time and you have a daily or a weekly touch point call set up with the customer already. And they suddenly start talking about a new project. Now, knowing the customer for the past so many months, so many periods, you might accept that verbal conversation or communication and start working on the new project. But as a project manager, management principle, it is said that you should not do that unless it is formally documented and acknowledged. Because just like how the verbal communication came in, it might very easily be verbally denied, right? And all your efforts will go in vain. Secondly, always take feedback after you deliver your work, because that user acceptance and the customer satisfaction is important for project managers. Then we have, do not work on more than 2 tasks at a time as an individual, not as a project. As an individual, do not work on, everybody says that it is good to multitask, but do not multitask on a project. Do not try to manage more than 2 tasks at any given point in time. Then always keep your list of work prioritized. It is important for you to prioritize your list of work. Have you heard about this? Or I'm sure you would have used this phrase yourself in your day-to-day life. I'm crazy busy right now. I don't have time to do this, or I don't have time to do that. Right? Have you said this, or have you heard somebody saying this to you?
Yes.
Kind of. Once in a while, here and there, you might have heard this, right? Now imagine, as a individual, as a corporate employee, or as a government employee for that matter, okay, as a professional, we say, whether ourselves or we hear people say, that we are crazy busy. Now imagine a doctor working in an emergency room. Every single patient who is there in the emergency room, every single patient who is there in the emergency room has come to the emergency room because they are having some or the other problem which needs to be assisted with on an immediate basis. Have you heard the emergency room doctors say, I'm crazy busy? Wherein they are dealing with human diseases and conditions and human lives on a minute by minute basis. Every single patient in the emergency room needs their attention. But how come those doctors are not crazy busy? And we as professionals are crazy busy? Have you ever thought of that? The reason is because in hospitals, in emergency rooms, in operation theaters, there is a system called as triage. Not sure if you have heard about this term or not, but there are codings assigned to each patient. Someone is code blue, somebody is code red, somebody is code green. This is the system of triaging. This system of triaging is used. Triage, the spelling is Triage, in case you are hearing the term for the first time. Okay. The system of triaging is essentially prioritizing the patients based on their requirement of attention. Okay. Similarly, as a project manager, you should be able to triage your work. Yes, it is absolutely possible that you have too much on your plate, which you as an individual may not be able to manage, whether as a project manager or whether as a professional. That is a different thing. But if you do not have too much on your plate right now, you are managing 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50 projects, whatever be the count at any given point in time based on your organization's nature of business. you should always be able to triage your work and prioritize your work. That is really, really essential and important for you as a project manager. That is one more principle. And then the last example, communicate objectively when you report work status, not subjectively. Don't write stories in your status reports. Nobody is interested in that. Nobody is going to read that. Most of the times, the stakeholders will try and avoid those status reports. And then one fine day, when the bomb has finally exploded after taking for a certain period of time, certain amount of time, everybody will be caught off guard. So communicate objectively in your work status reports. All right. With that, let us take a break here. It's 8:35. A 10-minute break is fine.